We on? Good. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It is actually 10:30, believe it or not. Time flies when you're having fun. Good that everybody's socializing. If we can all find our way to a chair. Welcome to the UUFCC New Year's Eve service. We will be starting with an opening anthem with the choir, number 347, Gather the Spirit. Good morning, everyone. It's always nice to have to make people go to their seats because they're socializing. It's a sign of good things, right? So we are obviously at the UU Fellowship of Charlotte County in Port Charlotte, Florida, and today is the last day of 2023. At least it wasn't 2020, 2021, or 2022. So we're steadily coming out of the pandemic hole, as to speak. And 2024 starts anew tomorrow, and that's going to be my one-man band today. So because we have so many people gone and out of town and visiting, I am all of it today for you guys. So I am your worship associate and your speaker, and I'm doing a potluck with you guys after service. So give me about 5 to 10 minutes after we exit the service to get set up so that I can get everything on the table where it belongs. As always, it looks like people brought a lot of beautiful things for the potluck. The reason for my potluck today is Janet's familiar because she's also from the Midwest. I come from a Bavarian German background, and what we do for good luck in the German tradition is pork and kraut on New Year's Day. And so we have pork and kraut, but I also have non-meat sauerkraut, and the German potato salad is not any meat product in it at all for people that do not eat meat. But for those that eat meat, there's pork loin and bratwurst and 2 different kinds of sauerkraut, both purple and regular. And so giving you the whole immersive Bavarian experience after church for good luck stepping into 2024. A couple of housekeeping things. We welcome anybody that's joining us online from home, and we encourage you to have a candle as a chalice when we light our chalice. For the people in person, we ask that you silence your cell phones before the service to minimize interruptions. Of course, we give thanks to the people that make this place run, all the way from the board to Corey and Tom, our tech, to Janet, the choir, and Ryan, who are always tirelessly getting together, practicing, perfecting, and coming up with new things to present to the congregation. To all the people on the backstage of things that maybe we don't recognize, we recognize you today, and it takes a whole village to make this place run, and I will be talking a little bit about that later today. For our opening words, they're coming from a source that you may recognize the name. The title is Letting Go, and it's by Reverend Jay Wolin, and you may know that name because Jay was the minister at Venice very recently. Are we a people of holding on or letting go? Holding on to rigid ideas or letting go and opening our minds and our hearts to something new? Holding on to the certainty of how things should be or letting go and living with the uncertainty of new ways of being in the world? Holding on to what makes us comfortable or letting go so that we may grow, which can be uncomfortable? Holding on to what makes us safe, or letting go to make room to help others feel safe. With this flame, this symbol of our religion, let it be a symbol of burning up the ties that hold us back from being our true self and reaching our true potential. Let it be a symbol of lighting a new way for us into a better tomorrow. And let it be a symbol of letting go, because holding on too long and too tightly is never good for the soul. We'll light our chalice in unison with our covenant. Love is the spirit of disfellowship, and service is law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. And now Ryan will give us our prelude. Thank you very much. Next, we will be doing hymn number 143, which is Not in Vain. As you detected, I went a little out of order before, and sometimes we just roll with it when that happens. So, Janet says we're rolling. So, number 143, Not in Vain, The Distance Beacons. Getting back to your regularly scheduled program, we will have our reading, which is entitled, Carry Each Other into the New Year by Beth Monholland. In this new year, may we leave behind the weight of unfulfilled resolutions, of unrealized dreams, and of unrealistic expectations. May we unpack the heavy weight of stories that tell us that we are unworthy and unlovable. May we remember that each of us carries inside of us a spark of the divine. In this new year, may we carry kindness, gentleness, and hope that holds us through even the hardest days and the most daunting risks. May we carry the weight of memory that reminds us of who we are, and the weight of spirit that reminds us we are still becoming. May we carry the seed of knowledge that teaches us that improvement and growth aren't linear and individualistic, but are cyclical and communal. May we carry the wisdom to seek rest and connection, to lean into mutual care. May we carry the certain belief that we have patterns of thinking and behaving that harm ourselves and others. We can seek resources that will help us move toward healing. May we carry the knowledge that happiness and success take many shapes, and one of those shapes is purpose. May we carry purpose lightly, trusting that it changes and evolves and surprises us. May we carry curiosity, wonder, and the ability to be surprised. This year, may we carry space for all of our flaws, all of our longings, and all of our love, remembering that the truly daring adventure of life is not to be better, better, best, but to show up wholly, authentically, lovingly as ourselves. May we carry these prayers and carry each other into the new year. And if Lynn does not mind, if I could get the Book of Life. Thank you. So I will read the Book of Life, and then I will open up the floor to dropping of stones as well. So my first entry in the Book of Life is from Patrick Eaton, and it says, "My thanks to everyone for the love and condolences for the passing of my dear friend Sandy." And I have one from Lori, and I was going to mention it if it hadn't been mentioned, and that was thoughts and intentions to Laura Anderson. She is okay, but she had a car accident which totaled the car that I think only had a few hundred miles on it the other day, and she's bumped and bruised and upset at herself because apparently she was saying that it was her fault. So I assured her when I talked to her that that's what car insurance is for, and that she needs to take care of herself first and let everybody else handle the rest. And then a thank you goes to both Tom and Doug from those in the congregation who are ladder challenged, because Tom and Doug went up and did some AC duct repairs. So not only are we managing technology, we're managing facilities. So that's pretty awesome, right, guys? So as I said earlier, it takes an entire village to run this place. And shall we be mindful of such? I will open the floor to dropping of stones. Feel free to come up. Okay, he's working on it. Feel free to come up. Are we on? I can't tell if I'm on. No, I want my sinuses. Come on up, folks.
Hi. I put a stone in there for my stepfather. I got a call Christmas morning, the kind of call that nobody wants to get, especially on Christmas morning. And my sister told me that our father was dying. And so I started looking on Allegiance website, trying to make plans for a flight to visit Pennsylvania on the worst time of the year. But anyway, I got a call about 12 hours later, and I was petrified to answer my phone, but it was from my same oldest sister saying that Fritz is now responding. He was pretty much comatose Christmas morning, and he was now chatting with the nurses and being his normal, wonderful self. So I am grateful. I got handed a really crappy father at birth, and my mother finally got it right and found the man that I would have picked to be my father. So he will be turning 87 tomorrow. So I love you, Fritz.
My husband mailed me a gift from Ohio, and in the box was this tiny crystal. So on the phone, I said, Jim, there's a little stone in the box. He said, would you please put it in the water for our dead son, Mike, the next time you go to fellowship? So this is, whoops, let me knock the mic over. That's for Mike. This, I hope the keffiyeh does not offend anyone. I was given this on the West Bank of the Jordan River 40 years ago. I have Palestinian friends, Muslim friends, Jewish lineage. Oh, if only the children of Abraham could sit and eat dates and olives together, inshallah.
Hi, everyone. I have a huge thank you to all of you who reached out and sent thoughts and food and stuff to Jackie and I when I broke my shoulder. And an incredible, I mean, you have been a community, a family, everything to us and in our hearts. And I just want to give a all points bulletin for Jackie, who has just been running upside down and on everything I touch, I drop, and I can't pick it up. And oh my gosh, unbelievable. I could go on and on, but I won't. Thank you so much, all of you.
You didn't go to nursing school for nothing, right?
This is for my friend Mary and her family who live in Tel Aviv. And I think of them every day.
A couple of days ago was the 8th anniversary of the passing of my wife, Sandra. So, passing of my wife, Sandra. And as you know, Christmas is a little somber. And the Unitarian congregation of Rockland County, that's where I come from, in Rockland County, New York, was the place where that helped me up, besides my family, that helped me up and gave me helped me grieve the loss of my wife. And on Thanksgiving Day, when I went there, I went to the congregation, and I had the family finance a frontage landscape for the Unitarian in memory of my wife. It was substantial, but you know, it's all. So I learned to move on, never forgetting her, and look forward. Look forward to 2024. Hopefully, along the way, I'll find a partner, and yeah, and let's go on.
This is for you.
Thanks. The nurse, yeah.
No, okay. This is a funny thanks, but I was so thrilled and so happy on yesterday. Lori got to take her first shower in the shower. Woo! No, who cares?
We heard about some other 70-something-year-old that didn't smell good recently.
Say that. There's a lot of people that could be referencing.
Controversial.
If I could have a moment for Janet and Ryan, the choir wants to say thank you. The music struck me this morning. It was gather in spirit, gather in hope. We hope we continue to have a choir. We hope we continue to have Janet and Ryan leading us in it. And if they would come forward, please. Just. Okay, I am too. Janet and Ryan and.
Anybody have a camera?
Oh, you're getting photographic here. Pinch his backside.
Like Ryan.
This is the most he's ever let his picture get taken in 20 years, let me tell you. And this dropping of the stones just further adds to what I'm about to talk about soon. I'm going to leave one other stone for any joys and concerns that are unspoken, maybe too tender to mention right now. So we'll leave that intention. And now we have a special music. It is the anthem, Light of a Clear Blue Morning, which is a lesser known hit of the one and only Dolly Parton.
I've been waiting.
And as somebody that's not in the choir but is here for choir practice every week, I just have to tell you how hard these individuals work on this music for all of you every Sunday. They started off saying, "We're not singing that." And 3 weeks later, you got it. So just an amazing amount of effort that this choir puts out for you every week. For our meditation today, it's by another fairly familiar name, Bill Sinkford, who is a past president of the UUA. And Bill writes, "Help us enter the new year aware and awake, so that our decisions of what to do, what to put down, and what to take up can be made with intention and clarity. Intention is important, but help us also enter the new year aware and awake, so that we are open to moments of grace, so that we do not let pass opportunities to forgive and be forgiven, so that we can know and share love and unleash its power in us and through us. Help us enter the new year aware and awake, so that we do not miss the living of our lives." So today did not start out with me being your speaker. Today started out with me being Reverend Bob Murphy's worship associate. But Bob and his wife are not in town at the holidays. So it became, well, what do we do? And I said, well, I'm already up there anyway. I'll take a gander at it. So Ryan and I were part of, actually founding members of a small fellowship in Adrian, Michigan, which is as deep red as Michigan gets. Some of you and I were talking about the state rep, or the U.S. rep, Tim Wahlberg, earlier this morning, and he serves the area where our congregation met. And so several weeks of the month, I was called to service in the front. So it's kind of a natural thing. So putting this together today, I'm calling this a view from the balcony. And it covers kind of a little bit of different things. I was asked to speak a little bit about forgiveness as well. And so I rolled that in and nuanced it into our program today. And so here goes. Today, we're on the eve of another year, 2024. And boy, 2020, 2021, 22, and 23, while all less a little ridiculous than the previous, I will say it was a wild time to decide to move to Florida the week the pandemic started. And if you told me I was going to do that, I told you you were crazy, right? So today's a great time for reminiscing about things, and people have been doing this for forever, right? And we know from at least 1785, when Robert Burns composed the now famous Auld Lang Syne, which is a Scottish phrase for long times past. It's a poem that he set to music that actually is a collection of phrases and sentiments dating well back into the 17th century. And that particular tune sort of recollects two friends meeting and affirming their affection for each other, despite the years and the distance between them. And now is kind of the time of the year that a lot of us personally take stock in ourselves and what's happened in the last 12 months. Personally, professionally, emotionally, right? So what are my triumphs, my successes, and my celebrations? And what did I wish maybe I had done a little bit differently in the last year? And I kind of guess I've done that all my life and not realized it till I sat down writing this, right? And I think kind of as a congregation, we have to do that as a group of people that meet here at UUFCC as well, right? And Ryan and I haven't even been here a year. I think we started the last week of May, maybe, somewhere around the halfway point of the year we came. And so we look at it, and I have kind of a unique perspective to talk a little bit today because I'm not 10, 15, 20 years into this congregation like so many faces out there. And I don't remember how things were before when different people were in different positions and such. So I'm kind of an outsider. But I think that my outsider view might be a little helpful too. To give you a little background into where my perspective comes from. So I have been a UU since I believe 2007 when Ryan drugged me to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lima, Ohio, which he started going to in the late 90s, going to PFLAG meetings. And that's how he was introduced to UUism, was through a PFLAG meeting, which I think it's great that you're doing that here too, because he found his place and actually started taking his mother with him as well at that time when he was a young man. And I was very staunchly Roman Catholic when we met. So we met in 2002, and I was 20 and he was 21, and I was the poster child. I was held up as the poster child in my diocese because I was the person under 80 that they really recognized, so much so that I was on the front page of the Toledo Blaze carrying the cross on Good Friday. You can find it from, I believe, 2001 or 2. Me in the snow, 130 pounds, walking with a giant cross down Conant Street. And it was all over the city of Toledo, which was whatever, right? So I was in leadership as a Roman Catholic as well, which is extremely different than being in leadership in a UU fellowship. Because it's much easier, folks. So if there's a disagreement, a priest gets involved. If the associate pastor can't solve it, the pastor does. And if he can, it's the bishop, and you don't have anything to say. That's just how it goes. And most of that involves canon law, grabbing a big Bible, and that's how they decide. And clearly, unfortunately, that is not how we decide as UUs. I've been known in many circles, and I think maybe even in this circle, as being a bit of a troublemaker. But I like to say that that is good troublemaking. So when I come and I speak to you about things, I am not here, and I please, anything I say today, don't take it as a personal attack or a critique. I bring to you what I bring to you as a way to show you sort of an outsider view of what somebody coming in fresh sees. And it is in no way in a way to disparage or put someone down. And if I do make you feel that way, come to me, please. I don't think I do, but you never know, right? And so, as you're all aware, it's been a very challenging time for churches since the pandemic hit. In fact, it's been just devastating to most churches. A worldwide pandemic literally came on us in a flash, right? And everything shut down. Our workplaces, our schools, everything. Everything that could shut down, shut down. And the first thing that really shut down was churches. And so, it forced worship to take a very different form for every church, every religion. And it was very difficult to survive. Prior to the COVID pandemic, 28% of Americans attended weekly service. So that was a number that came out in, the study came out in 2021. That number was from 2019. So shortly before the pandemic hit. And since the pandemic, only 6% are reporting themselves as being weekly service attendants. And so it doesn't take much to see what that means for every single congregation, every denomination across the world, not just the United States, right? And so a study that was recently funded by the Lilly Endowment showed that attendance is down across the board, about an average of 9% in each congregation. Fortunately, giving is up 25% in these congregations. So somehow less people are coming, but they're giving more. The ones that are coming are giving more, is what it's shown. And in the United States alone, an estimated 4,500 churches closed because of the COVID pandemic. And I can tell you from Northwest Ohio, where we're from, lots of church buildings for sale right now. And it's very sad to see churches that I would have never dreamed would have closed or gone off the map. So in that regard, UUFCC, you guys are doing well. I mean, went right into an online format. And as everybody, I'm sure there were a lot of tweaks and issues and technical glitches. But somehow, being a small congregation, you managed to succeed and keep it alive. And so you've got to remember that going through all the struggles that have happened in the last few years. This place survived when so many did not, right? And so it's nice that there's actually a way to attend here if you're not physically able to get here in person for whatever reason. You can stay connected, and that's really important. You know, getting back into the pre-pandemic mode, though, is really challenging for a lot of people, not just this congregation, not just this denomination, which I will interestingly tell you as well, stepping into that venue. Unitarian Universalism isn't really growing, but it's not really shrinking. So over the last 20 to 30 years, while you watch traditional mainline Christianity trending down, I can give you a statistic from Roman Catholicism, which is for every one new Catholic that comes into a parish, 7 are leaving or dying. And so Unitarian Universalism has some spots where it's very vibrant, large congregations in bigger cities, some places. But for the most part, it's stayed about the same over the last 30 to 40 years. Not a lot of growth, but not a lot of retraction either. So it's stable, correct. Absolutely. And so, you know, it's getting back into, we're out of a pandemic. We are officially coming as a healthcare provider. We are in an endemic, meaning COVID is with us forever, kids. Just like the flu, just like the common cold. I don't foresee it going anywhere, right? And just like you get a flu shot, now we have a COVID vaccination. And so getting back to the things that all of our congregations used to do, you know, we've had a couple of potlucks again. The first one I was not really a part of because we had just started coming and they had a potluck. I think people were kind of hesitant because of all the COVID protocols. Then we've had a couple more and I think we've done okay, right? And then there's been a real concerted effort, and I think we're going to work harder on this one, to do things other than just a Sunday morning service. So yes, there are covenant groups and chalice circles and things, but I'm talking about things that allow us to get together as a congregation, not necessarily as a worship service. Already last summer there was an improv service that people really loved, and we're wanting to expand on that so that we have more, maybe I would say, casual times to be together so that people can reconnect and re-socialize and remember who each other is, right? Because it's been a couple of years, and it's like getting back up on the bike and riding, right? So that's where we are. There have been a lot of changes in the short time that Ryan and I have been here, and one of those is like in worship. So there's a lot more collaboration between groups. So whether that's the worship associate, the minister, the musicians, the choir, there's a spirit of cooperation going forward to try to get everybody to work as a team and try to view our worship services as more of a community effort so that it's not put onto one person to pick all the music and pick all the readings and pick everything that's going to be said today. and make it a little more friendly for people to be able to step up and volunteer and help out, because it can be very daunting if you're not trained. To my knowledge, we have basically one trained minister that's with us, which is Ted. And beyond that, I don't know that we have anybody that's actually got theological training that's coming up. And so it can be a challenge when you're not used to doing these things. As I say, previously, it was sort of on the worship associate to decide everything. And that can be extremely stressful. And I think that sort of makes people step back and go, I don't know that I want to do that, because it's a lot of work and I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. And my motto is the perfection is in the imperfection. And I know that there's a lot of really great faces, smart people, experienced people with a lot of stories to tell out in the congregation. And personally, I would love to hear those. So if you guys have a topic you're passionate about that you want to share, please talk to the worship committee and get on the schedule. And we're happy to coach you through how to speak up here in front of a group of people. It's not as bad as it seems. And I think that all of you have life experiences and things to tell us that are really valuable for all of us. So we would love to see that, right? And we're also working hard as a group to try to make things more interactive for people. So we brought back dropping of the stones, which sometimes can get a little long, but we want people to feel that they're involved and connected and able to share with each other instead of just having to sit there and be talked at the whole time. So we're working very hard at that. And we're also starting to explore some ideas about having more non-traditional worship services like poetry and music service. As you know, Christmas Eve was very different than what's been traditional. So we had very little speaking and very much singing so that everybody could be together and enjoy Christmas carols and things. And so expect to see more of that from us as a group, right? I also wanted to speak on other issues, and I was actually asked to speak a little bit on forgiveness and moving forward. And as I say, I'm sort of in a unique position because I was one of the youngest people to ever serve as parish leadership in a Catholic parish in the Diocese of Toledo. Disagreements happen at every congregation, whether it's UU, Catholic, Protestants, everybody, Jewish people. When you have a group of people that all get together, there's 60, 70, 80, 100, 200, 300, in my case, 650. There's not going to be one view or one viewpoint that everybody sees eye to eye on all the time. And so there's always disagreements in congregations. In the UU tradition, though, there's an opportunity to be heard. And so sometimes that can get a little messy. I don't think that means that we need to throw that in the garbage either, because it's very important that everybody gets a chance to speak and be heard. I have been, not present for a lot of the schisms that have happened here, but I will promise you it's happened everywhere we've been. And it'll happen some more, unfortunately. It'll happen some more at every congregation at some point, especially when the democratic process is involved. We have seen a lot of challenges here in this congregation beyond what the pandemic brought, right? So you guys had a beloved minister that left, and it caused a whole dynamic shift for the congregation. And then, a controversial replacement came in behind that beloved minister and divided the congregation further. And you're still dealing with some of that fallout now, right? And then you had a very unpleasant situation with a member and their spouse. And then you had a music professional leave. So you guys have had the hits keep on coming, but guess what? You guys are all still here. Things get controversial, they get rough, they get tough. Tears get shed, maybe voices get raised, but you're all still here. And that's so important. A few weeks ago, one of the people that deeply hurt so many of you in this congregation appeared in the church, and they apologized and asked for your forgiveness. I was sitting in the back of that church, and I saw so many faces that were shocked. There were legitimately fear. They were afraid. There were some faces of anger and some faces of resentment, and all of those reactions are completely understandable for what happened. I was not here for it. I heard it from many different viewpoints. One of the things that we do when we come in now, we've kind of been around a bit, is talk to as many people as we can about everything. And one of the wisest things that happened when Ryan came in, because so many things had happened back to back to back, is we were talked from very different perspectives on the things that had happened. And Dennis actually sat us down for a couple of hours at lunch and went through things from the leadership perspective of what had happened here and how it affected the congregation and how it had made people upset and fearful. And I think you guys handled the situation a few weeks ago beautifully, as best as can be expected, right? And I think that it's really important to say that you accepted the apology, but remember, forgiveness doesn't mean that you forgot, right? Forgiving, we talk about, and coming from the Catholic tradition, you talk about turning the other cheek. And I could tell you a funny story about turning the other cheek isn't what it sounds like. It's actually kind of a subtle flipping the bird to somebody, culturally, from the time that it was written, actually. But I digress on that, and I say it's important to acknowledge that it does not mean that you forget what happened to you guys. And it's important that that's in the back of your mind when dealing with people that have done that to you. It does not mean that that person is invited back into your life or gets the opportunity to come back and do it again to you. It means that you give up the right, the justified right, to be angry and to be resentful and to essentially have something to hold over somebody else. That's what forgiveness is. Maya Angelou says, it's one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself. Forgive everybody. That living with resentment is a poison to yourself. Maya also said, when a person shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So she was very balanced. Martin Luther King Jr. says we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He is devoid of power. To forgive is devoid of the power to love. And that there is some good in the worst of people in the world, and that there is some evil in the best of us. And when we discover this about ourselves, that it's much less prone to hate our enemies. And as I say, it is really letting go of that justifiable right to be angry. It involves an intentional decision to let it go. And that act that hurt or offended you might always be with you in some form or another, but working on forgiving what happened to you can lessen that act's grip on you. And that act of forgiveness is a liberation for ourselves. And I bring that to you in real life from a lot of things, from coming from an absolutely horrible childhood that I'm not going to stand up here and talk to you guys about it because it's traumatizing for everybody and triggering for a lot of people. Unfortunately, child abuse is not uncommon. And so I forgave my father and his wife. I have nothing to do with them. It has been 12 years. It will be 112 more. I live 1,200 miles away. They have no way to contact me. They do not have my phone number. They will not have my phone number. I let go of my justifiable resentment for what happened to me as a child because it ruins my life. And I took that dysfunction that I grew up with and brought it into my own life. And that's the biggest thing that I can do for myself is to break the chain. And Ryan talks about one philosopher that was talking about child abuse. And that was, well, my mother was dropped on her head, and that she dropped me on my head, and I dropped my kids on their head. And that's exactly the justification that I was given. Well, it's always been that way. Well, it's time to change that, right? So that has brought me peace to say, I had this thing I can hold over your head and I'm not gonna because I have another life to live for myself. And I think that that's an important thing for everybody affected by some of these things that have happened here. And I'll say it again, things will happen in the future. Unfortunately and sadly, it's how it goes when you have a group of a bunch of different people and we all come from different places and different backgrounds and different histories and different dysfunctions and different DSM-4 diagnoses. The important thing here is that we get together as a group and we really agree on some really important things. And one of the biggest things I think all of us agree on is how to treat each other, right? So when we got here, the first time we came, it was like you could cut the tension with a knife. People were just really stiff and no one was talking to anybody the first morning we got here. And I thought, and then of course we had a little thumbnail before he came, and basically Ryan auditioned and took the job and played the same Sunday. And so it was a thing that we took to each other after doing a few congregations over the years. What can we do to help? Because we looked around and we saw a bunch of really great people in the chairs around here. And it's like, I think they just have to get over the hump of all the things that have happened to them. You know, there's this shock and awe period still going on, and people are probably going to themselves, what's going to happen next? Don't ever ask what's going to happen next. And in medicine, I'm going to tell you another thing. If you don't want to know the answer, don't ask the question. You're going to get an answer, and you might not really like it. And so Ryan and I went around and talked to anyone that would talk. Everyone. Let people vent. Let people cry. Let people laugh. Let people shout. Some people had to shout. And that's okay, because I think that some people just needed to release the pressure off the pressure cooker, because so much had happened around here. And my response to a lot of people, because at the beginning it was, this person hurt my feelings, this happened. And I would tell people, well, do you like each other? I got all yeses, by the way. I didn't get one no. And I would say, then act like it. Because I think between the pandemic and between all the schism things that have happened and the drama that happened and the traumatization of people, that they got afraid to speak to each other because they didn't want someone to blow up on them or make threats at them, or they didn't want to get involved in that kind of thing, right? And so people got to a point that they were afraid to even speak to each other as a defense mechanism. One thing that I have been really impressed with you guys is, and I'm going to make it short, I know we're right at 11:30, right, is that there is this huge spirit of generosity in everybody here. And it's unbelievable how you all step up when given the opportunity, and how much financial support you give to these nonprofits when they come and they do the second Sunday. For such a small congregation, the amount of giving is amazing. And it's better than a lot of bigger congregations. Per capita, you guys are just like rock stars with this stuff, because you're putting forth, you're not just saying it, you're doing it, and that's really important. I told Ryan when we came, I'm not getting involved in another congregation. You can play the piano, and I purposely picked the back row because I was going to be a fly on the wall. I wasn't going to do anything because I've been burnt a few times across the spectrum. Losing River Raisin was very hard, but understandable. The pandemic crashed it. And then it was me trying to do things from in front of our baby grand piano in Florida for a virtual service, and one person trying to run her brains out to make it all happen, and it just went. And so that was very hard for me. The child that we started with our beloved minister, that was up to 40 to 50 people a Sunday to just go up and smoke after all the effort that was put in. So, like the third Sunday I came, it's like, well, he's here early for choir. I could at least make the coffee. And then, here I am. I'm on the worship committee, and now I'm standing here talking. And the joke is I'm not joining the choir because I can't be in everything, right? So that is one of those things that I feel so compelled to do what I do here, because there's so many great people. I've not met one person here that I go, why are they at a UU church? And promise you I've said that a lot. We had one church that Ryan and I were part of that there would be fights. It was a Universalist church, and there would be fights. And the catchphrase became, "Love is the spirit of this church," because people would be brawling in the basement after service, right? And so where do you go from here? 2024 is wide open, and where do we go from here? And what I ask you is, well, why are you here? And I think that the dropping of stones this morning really answers that question. And that's because all of us need a community where it's safe to be ourselves. We have this thing going on in the world on all sides. It's not a particular political view. It's not a particular, the media and social media and all the things that we see are spun up to upset and hurt us. Because what they have found with Facebook in particular, if you are angry and upset, you spend more time on there. And then what Facebook does is it markets your data to customize things for you to buy. And it's very good with me. It picks exactly what I want every time. I would sincerely encourage all of you to speak to each other when there's a conflict rather than going to the board. So if there's something small between you and somebody else, talk to them, guys. We're all humans here. Everybody that I've met is reasonable. I've encountered people at their angriest here. And if you could just let them vent, say what they have to say, let them know that you hear what they're saying, offer your perspective or your opposing view, and talk to each other like people. A lot of things can really be solved on a personal level with each other. And a lot of things here are just simple misunderstandings. And another good quote, and this comes from Maya Angelou again. I never thought I would quote her so much. What you're supposed to do when you don't like a thing is change it. And if you can't change it, change the way you think about it, right? She says, don't complain. Or more pertinent to my childhood, my grandmother, Mae Richardson, said, if you don't stop complaining, I can give you something to complain about. And that worked well for her, and believe me, you didn't want to find out what that was. My favorite quote about church leadership is this, and that's, in a church there is no power, only responsibility. And like I said, I was going to be a fly on the wall when we came here. And I was just very impressed with everything that's happening. You have a lot of volunteers that have been here for decades. They're getting volunteer fatigue, and I understand that. On top of their responsibilities, they're paying to be a volunteer here because they're giving a pledge or they're putting in the collection plate every Sunday, right? So we need to remember that the people that do all these things for us, the people that greet you at the door, the people that make sure tech is up and running, the people that make sure that things are clean around here, most of them are not paid for what they do. They're here on their own free will, out of the goodness of their hearts, and we need to remember that. We really need to remember that golden rule, which is to treat each other the way we want to be treated, first and foremost. And Jan will tell you, I have a bit of a temper. I say what I think, and sometimes I have to, luckily as I'm getting older, I'm able to back myself up before it flies out of my mouth, because for years I ate crow because I couldn't. What I will tell you also is that all of those little fights that we have about stupid things that don't matter get in the way of our cohesiveness in our community. I purposely come here and put on a potluck because, number one, I don't have to entertain a family of 70 anymore. So I don't really get that opportunity very often. But number two, it's really important to rebuilding community here. And we do lunch bunch. Not because I just like to go out to eat, but I really do like to go out to eat. I was asked to start lunch bunch back up. And it's really important that we do things like that so people get that time with each other that's not around the worship service, and they can talk and about things maybe not related to church and kind of find out their commonalities with each other, right? And I think that one of the things going forward is just being open-minded to, sometimes a change is not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's a change. And there is a lot of understandable reminiscing about when we had this minister and we were so big we had to have two services because there wasn't enough room in the chapel, and thank God you guys didn't end up buying another church building, because then there'd be a whole new problem, right? I would really, really encourage people to reframe that, because that's been one of the things that I have heard kind of across the board, is we can only be successful if we get back to that. So we've got this trophy up here, which is full-time minister, 2 services because it's so crowded there's nowhere to park. And that's fabulous. I think that's great that that was. I think that's just, because let me tell you, the numbers you used to run are as big as St. Petersburg, okay? Which is a much bigger area that they draw from, which is amazing. But I'm going to give you some statistics, guys, because one of our friends is on congregational leadership for Southeast Region. There are 31 available UU ministers right now. There's 97 available positions. So reframe the way you think. Reframe the idea of having to get a minister full time, because it's probably not realistic at this point, unfortunately. And reframe the way we feel about how services had to be structured so they're less stressful for the people that are giving services. And I am going to end it, because I am now almost 10 minutes over. And I leave you with this, and that's, and there's a hand, my trusty friend, and give me a hand o' thine, and we'll take a right good draft for all like thine. Now, I had to abridge that. I wasn't quite done, but I gave you the big gist of it. And like I said, I hope no one's offended. It's not meant to, it's very much meant to kind of give you that outsider perspective as a reframing. So I am off the pulpit, right? Thank God. I know people are ready for me to get out of here. I'm going to do 2 brief announcements, because we do need to get those in. And one of them is very important here, from Kay Azar, and that's that she is unable to chair the auction this year for other things that are going on in life. But she is definitely willing to mentor anyone who would be interested in taking over the auction. So if you're interested in maybe taking over the auction, contact Kay Azar. And then my other announcement is that Wednesday is Brown Bag Lunch this week at 12 noon. And they want you to bring games this week and stay for a little more fun beyond lunch, right? And so I am going to cut out my closing words and extinguish the chalice. Oh, sorry. Yes, and I sat here and talked about how it takes a city, and then I cut the offering out. I'm very sorry, folks. So as you're all aware and have always responded generously, we are going to do the offering. So what we're going to do in the interest of time, since I ran so far over, is we're going to skip 1018, and I'm going to extinguish the chalice, and then the choir will finish up with Auld Lang Syne, which you can find the words on the back of your program. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace.